Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we've got a video about asylum seekers again and some misinformation that a channel called History Debunked has put into one of his videos. So I thought we'd have a look at it and tackle it bit by bit and debunk the misinformation. Before we do this video, I just want to say that my friend Reese is running for a refugee charity, and he's asking for donations to sponsor him for that charity. So I'm going to put the link in the description. I hope if anybody watches this you can go down, check it out and give a little donation. That would be awesome. So without further ado, let's get on with the video.
Hello again. The population of Britain rose last year by well over 500,000.
Well, I've checked that out and that's not correct. We can see here it's population growth, and what he's talking about is not correct. 67,281,039 to 67,508,936. That's not an increase of 500,000. What I think he might be on about is live births. So every year in the country there are from anywhere from 500,000 to 700,000 births a year. That could be what he's on about. Let's leave that for now and let's carry on with what he's saying.
And all those people obviously needed somewhere to live. You see, fewer than 200,000 new houses and flats are being built each year in this country, and so that means that every year another 300,000 or 400,000 immigrants are going to have to squeeze into the existing housing stock.
Yes, that's kind of true, but people leave the country every year. You know, say people leave the country every year, people die, houses become available, places become available, but I do agree with him that there are not enough houses or rented accommodation, social housing being built in this country. Absolutely not. But I can't see that that's the fault of asylum seekers or immigrants.
One does not need to be an economist to see that this is likely to create a shortage of rented property, and that when a lot of people are trying to acquire something of which there is not enough, then that inevitably has the effect of pushing up the price.
If you don't build more. Okay, so if the government don't build more houses, then yes, more people are going to have to squeeze into fewer homes. But again, that is a government issue. That it's the government's responsibility to build homes, so that the people they plan to accommodate all have a home. If they're not, building the homes for the amount of people, then they're doing something wrong.
Inflation doesn't help, of course, and neither do the poor economic conditions at the moment, but the primary driver in this matter is immigration.
It can't be immigration. It can't physically be immigration. It's not building enough homes. With immigration, you take a set number of people applying to emigrate to your country, and especially in Britain, in order for you to emigrate to this country, you have to have somewhere already planned to live. You have to have sorted that out. You have to have a job or somewhere to study, depending on what visa you're coming here on. You have to have that sorted before you come here. So there's no pressure being put on that by immigrants, people that arrive into our country. It's not them. It's clearly not building enough homes to accommodate people.
The British government is desperately keen to rid itself of an embarrassing problem, which is that it is block booking hotels all over the country and paying them huge amounts of taxpayers' money to give all their rooms to illegal immigrants.
They're doing that by choice. Okay, they've not been forced into doing that or anything. They have to do that because they're not processing asylum claims, and that's leading to a big backlog of people with obviously nowhere to go. And the really important thing to remember is they are not illegal immigrants. We don't house illegal immigrants in this country. We don't give illegal immigrants benefits in this country. Illegal immigrants get deported in this country when they're found, okay? There is a clear distinction between someone who is seeking asylum because they've made a claim for asylum and someone who has made an illegal entry to this country and tried to evade the authorities, okay, or deceive the authorities. These people crossing the channel, asylum seekers, are not illegal immigrants. They're using a legal process, which is claiming asylum.
This is costing over £7 million a day, or about £2.5 billion a year.
Something that's absolutely correct. Thing to remember about this is that this money, it's nearly £3 billion a year, is coming from the foreign aid budget. It's not coming from money that was destined to be spent in the UK. It's coming from money that was destined to be spent abroad. Now that money's been diverted from being spent abroad and is being spent in the UK. That wouldn't happen without the government doing that. So on one hand, you can kind of say that it's a benefit to the UK in a way, because some hotels that would have had to close down are being allowed to stay open because of this injection of money, housing asylum seekers. But that again is absolutely a government choice. They're not forced into doing that.
Shoving some of them into disused RAF bases is one solution, although that's being challenged through the courts. And
well, quite obviously it's being challenged through the courts. Many people are challenging that on both sides of the argument. Okay, you've got people that don't want to put them there on the grounds of compassion, and the other side which don't want them being put there because it's close to where they live, and they don't want these people near them because they're scared of them for some reason. Let's carry on.
So there is a frantic attempt to get these characters out of the hotels and into private accommodation.
It's not really that frantic though, is it? It's not that frantic. They're putting people on barges now instead of keeping them in hotels. But obviously they're not putting them on barges instead of hotels. It's as well as, because obviously hundreds of people come a day and there's no accommodation for them because the government have created this backlog.
It doesn't help, of course, that they keep on coming in their tens of thousands. Since there is already a serious lack of private...
So just say to that you're not going to stop that. Not while they have a legal right to claim asylum in this country. You can't change that. To change that would mean, we'd be an embarrassment of a country. We certainly couldn't call ourselves Great Britain anymore, in my opinion.
Houses and flats to rent. The government is able to throw money around like a drunken sailor on shore leave to ensure that it is they who get hold of the increasingly scarce properties so that they can use them to house foreigners.
Something else to remember here is that the people in government, they have a lot of investment in properties. A lot of them are landlords, a lot of them are property owners, and by not building houses, they do push up the price of houses, which if they're invested in a house and then you sell a house when the price has gone up, you're making a lot of money. And that makes sense. So with our government, doesn't it? That's what they do. They're protecting their own interests. Okay, they're only here to serve themselves. They're not here to serve this man. They're not here to serve me or my family or friends. They're not here for that.
This is done through both SERCO, that's the acronym SERCO, that people are probably familiar with, and the government-run housing agency Clear Springs. In the description to this video I give a link to Serco's appeal for private rental property to lease. Their terms are so attractive that any private landlord would be mad not to do business with them. The government guarantees rent, pays all the bills, repairs and so on. It is an offer that many find hard to refuse.
Well, it's a bit like the hotels, isn't it? It's hard for the hotels to refuse it, because it's straight up, it's a deal right there. Take in these people and we'll give you all this money, our money, right? And neither me or this guy want that to happen, and yet his facts are so misconstrued about the situation. And I'll just say I'll provide all the sources that I've used to prove what this guy's saying wrong. The Refugee Act, things like that. But he's provided 3 links, which I'll provide as well, the same 3 links. But for all the claims that he's making, there's not enough evidence to back up what he's saying at all. He just hasn't provided it. He's provided 3 links to 3 things that he said.
Now the government, via Clearspring, have resorted to bribery. They are offering landlords a cash payment of £2,000 if they will take an asylum seeker instead of an ordinary British person seeking somewhere to live. This so-called introduction fee is a fantastic inducement to do business with the government and to take asylum seekers, rather than to operate in the open market.
Well, let's be clear about this. If that, I'm not an expert on this, I don't know what he's talking about here. I haven't gone into this in very much detail at all. But if what he is claiming here is true, then why is that an asylum seeker's fault? That's the government. That's the government. It's not an asylum seeker's fault, and it shouldn't take away their right to claim asylum in this country, because the government are corrupt, basically.
This means that people who were born and grew up in this country are being priced out of the housing market.
Yes, but not like this. Not with little backhanders for a few people here and there. It's important to remember that the number of asylum seekers in this country, okay, it's not even 0.03% of our population. Okay, there's like, I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, so I'm not going to state it, because unlike some people, when I don't know something, I'm not just going to claim it, okay? So I don't know that, but I know, having researched it before, recently, it's like 0.03%, and it's certainly no more than, I think, 0.5% of our population are asylum seekers. And it's important to remember that those people that are in hotels, they're not in the housing market. Some of them will be deported, okay?
A young member of my own family living in the English Midlands has been compelled to move recently with her 2 children. She has at long last secured a 3-bedroom house for £1,500 a month. That is £18,000 a year. It is such a feverish and overpriced market in which the government are now trying to rig things in favour of illegal immigrants.
No, they're not, because an illegal immigrant can't be legally given a home in the United Kingdom. They must be deported by law. You can't be an illegal immigrant here and claim benefits or get a house or enter any kind of official business with anybody, because you're illegal. You're evading the authorities. You're not going up to them doing deals with them.
They're doing this for purely political purposes, because they do not want to go into the next election still forking out £2.5 billion a year to house foreigners in hotels, which looks lousy on so many fronts.
I think it's quite interesting his use of the word foreigners. It's just foreigners now. It's not even illegal immigrants or asylum seekers, it's just foreigners. I think I'll get a sense of what this guy's views probably are, which I'm not going to assume, but I have my own thoughts and feelings. If I was to watch some more of his content, I could make a good guess, a good prediction about what he talks about. But again, they're not illegal immigrants. They're asylum seekers. They're using a legal process.
If they can only get them all into private rented accommodation, perhaps it won't look quite so terrible. I am by no means...
You couldn't have a person who is making a claim for asylum go into a private rented accommodation. Okay, that you just can't, because you need to assess who these people are. If they're legally allowed to be here, you can't have them taking on responsibilities and things like that until you know who they are. That's why it's important to process people quickly, so that if they don't have a right to be here, you can deport them, and if they do have a right to be here, you can integrate them quicker back into society, get them a job, get them moving into a home. But it's something important to remember as well, is that once an asylum seeker has been given refuge in the UK, they have to find their own accommodation. They'll be given some help to find somewhere, but not necessarily financial help to move in. They're not going to have their rent paid for them. They have to find work. That's another stipulation, obviously, unless they're disabled, but the majority of them aren't, and they have to find work, and they have to find work within a certain amount of time after being given refuge. So no asylum seeker is coming here for a free ride. It's just impossible. You couldn't do that. If you think that's possible, you need to look at what the stipulations to gain asylum in the UK are, because if you're saying that, you don't know. It's as simple as that.
Convinced that the British public is quite as stupid as this.
I hate to say it, mate, and I'm not going to say the same word you said, because that's not fair. People are uninformed, and I've said in the previous video about asylum seekers, the majority of people are uninformed about most things. Okay, the majority of people work 9 to 5 or some shift work or 2 jobs, and they come home and they want to relax, and they don't want to learn about the Refugee Act, and they don't want to learn about the rights of asylum seekers, or what kind of laws are involved in changing in asylum. Okay, they just don't know. It's not their fault. I'm not saying that people are stupid. They're just uninformed, and they don't have the motivation to be informed, and that's not their fault. It's complex to an extent. I'm not saying that people couldn't understand it. They absolutely could if they just took the time to read these things, but you can't convince somebody who doesn't want to learn. It's quite as simple as that.
I think that a lot of people can see what is going on here, and how the government is determined to make life more difficult for ordinary British people at the expense of a bunch of folk who have no connections with this country and have never contributed a penny towards its services.
Well, a lot of asylum seekers are from Afghanistan, and those are people that actually did help us. They fought in our armies, they helped our intelligence services, and we left Afghanistan and we didn't help them. And we have a legal obligation and a moral obligation to help them, people that helped fight alongside us. Okay, in a war that, whether, I don't know what your opinion on it, in my opinion it should never have taken place. We messed up their country and we handed it back to them with the Taliban in charge, and then we left them for dead. I think we have at least a moral obligation to help those people.
The behaviour of Serco and Clearspring is quite simply wrong. It is unjust.
But look, I will agree with you there. I will agree with this man here. If they are bribing people to give certain recommendations, or paying through the back door, giving a bribe to get someone in a house over somebody else because of a certain statistic or demographic or whatever, then that's wrong, of course. But again, it's not the asylum seekers' fault. It's not their fault.
Toward everybody in the country who does not happen to be an illegal immigrant.
Well, again, they're not illegal immigrants. So, and I'll finish on that. Once again, if you've enjoyed this video, like it and subscribe. And please donate to my friend who's running in the I can't remember how long it is. I'll put all the details in the description. Please give him a donation because he's an awesome guy. Alright guys, see you in the next one.